If really we do not feel any need for a prophet or a religion, we would not approach any religion. So this is our need.
How do we understand the very essence of prophetic experience? You're saying that revelation is more like a dream state or a dream attribute. Are revelation like dreams? Is the Qur'an truly the word of God, or is it also the word of Muhammad?
That Qur'an, more than showing us anything else, shows us the personality of the Muhammad. That's how I understand it.
We explore these profound questions with Dr Abdolkarim Soroush, philosopher of religion, distinguished Rumi scholar, and a leading voice in Islamic intellectual reform. He was also named one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in 2005.
From Rumi, the ideas are formless, and this is Prophet who forms them. And this is the main business of prophets, to form the formless.
In this episode, we discuss his thought-provoking ideas as presented in his articles and influential book, Expansion of Prophetic Experience.
Yes, I mean, that is something which is not for the, the common people.
You also have said is that you sometimes also say it's Kalam Muhammad, we usually call Kalamullah.
The last prophet has come, but the last Mufassir has not yet come.
I live in a time which is very different from Prophet's time. Currently, there is no prophet around me or revelation that are happening around me as well. So I have textual evidences saying it. But as a person who never uses revelation to do his daily jobs, as a person who never approaches, who goes by reason or goes by other sciences, how should someone understand this phenomenon of revelation? What is, for you, how would a modern mind understand revelation?
This is exactly the problem or the question of hermeneutics. Hermeneutics actually is there in order to tell us how to interpret, how to understand the text. Not only the text, but any understanding. Therefore, everything here depends on hermeneutics, on the issue of tafsir, actually. How to uncover, the truth, which lies behind this text or the history. So that is the most important thing. Exactly, my problem was the same. That here there are no prophets anymore, and according to the Qur'an, there cannot be any prophet anymore, and we are living in a modern time, and for us, only the Qur'an and the Sunnah is there. Even the Sunnah is not that reliable because we know that there were so many people who fabricated, fake hadith, and that also is a door which is semi-closed. So the only text perhaps we have is the Qur'an itself and some parts of the history of the Prophet, peace be upon him. That is. But the real thing is the interpretation. How do we understand it? There are people who think that we have to go back to the understanding of the people who lived in the time of the Prophet himself. And they say all these 1400 years is like something which prevents us from understanding. We have to unveil it. We have to uncover it. We have to actually remove these eradications, eliminate all these things in order to go back to the time of the Prophet. To me, and according to my theory in expansion and contraction, this is absolutely false. This is absolutely misleading. Apparently, it looks very, very nice, very excellent that, we are far from the time of the Prophet, so maybe we cannot understand, the intent of God, the intent of Prophet, so we better go back to the and discover what was in the mind of the addressees, the direct addressees of the Prophet himself. But this is a very wrong idea and a very misleading one. Because as I have mentioned and elaborated in my writing, Islam is a series of interpretations made of Islam. So it is a historical entity. Islam is not what was originally offered by Prophet. It was like a grain, that then developed during the history. It was, placed in the soil of history, if you like. And then it became a very thin, tree, and now it's a very big tree. And we are living under the shadow of this tree. We cannot ignore this historical growth of religious knowledge. We cannot ignore the different interpretations that had been offered and proposed by different mufassirun, different thinkers, and so on. So it is a historical entity. And we are now part of that history. And we cannot have the final word about it. Even our understanding of the text is conjectural and is tentative. Tentative in the sense that it might be, fully refuted in the future or maybe completed, and so on and so forth. I also always remember this saying by Imam Al-Ghazali, who was under, accusations that he has perhaps opposed Abu Hanifa and others. What he said was this, that, so long as the Prophet and Qur'an are concerned, we are servants and we are obedient, absolute obedient. But as far as the interpretations of other people and other generations are concerned, hum rijalun wa nahnu rijal. They did what they could do, and we will do what we can do. So we are not subservient to them, and we are not obliged to accept whatever they have had to offer us. So we are part of the history itself, and we offer our understanding. Therefore, this is what my original, view in the expansion and contraction of knowledge, that this historical knowledge of religion has been always expanding and, contracting. Like, inspiration. Yes, it is like this. And it has been always the case. And I do not mean only Shi'i, culture. In Sunni culture also is the same. And this is not only in Islam, but it applies to any religion. All religions are historical, and they have historically grown. And there have been always different interpretations of the same text. But, and this is a big but, now you might ask me how this reinterpretation takes place. Because the text of Quran, let us say, has been interpreted and reinterpreted and revisited and so on and so forth until now. How and why? This is, here actually comes in my thesis, that there are two sources of change. One is practical. We are living in a modern age, and we have got practical issues, and we, propose them to the text and try perhaps to extract some solutions and answers for our modern questions. But more importantly, it is theoretical. The changes come from sciences outside religion. They actually have their own pressure on our mind, and they actually change our mindset. And under those sciences, we actually knowingly or unknowingly come to have a different understanding of the same text. This is also something that history of religious culture is witness to that. For example, if you study books of tafsir, right after the time of the Prophet, say the 1st or 2nd century, until the modern time, you will see that these tafsir always change. Mm-hmm. And they have different, mufassirun have got different ideas and opinions about the same ayah, the same point. Why? Is it because they are not, sincere enough? Is it because they are not knowledgeable enough? Or no, it is because they are human beings. And when their, vision, changes, their understanding and their interpretation of the text would change. So, as I say in one of my books, we are immersed in an ocean of interpretations. And as I mentioned, Islam, or for that matter, Christianity, is nothing but a series of interpretations of Islam, a series of interpretations of Christianity. And as I said, they are historical entities growing and expanding and contracting. So we are left with the interpretation. In one of my writings, I have said that the last prophet has come, but the last mufassir has not yet come. And so we are struggling hard in order to extract meanings. But there is another point here which I have to make. Books like Qur'an is not there in order to tell us everything. First and foremost, we have to see and we have to well define our expectations from religion. Mm-hmm. So this issue of expectation is very important. This is something which I have, because some of the religious people, they think religion has got everything. And God has, done everything for us through the prophet or the religion he sent us. That is not true. We human beings, we have got different dimensions, and our life has got different aspects. And part of these dimensions are being treated by religion, by revelation, by prophet, by God. The rest is left to us in order to understand it, to discover it, and to perhaps solve it if there are problems. So this issue of expectations is one of the most important things that usually the people whom I call maximalists, mm-hmm. they have got the maximalist expectations from the Qur'an and from the revelation of the Prophet. I call myself a minimalist. And one of my main, struggles has been to show and to teach our fellow religious people to minimize their expectations from religion, to minimize and to demand, less and less, rather than to make it more and more. And so there are limits to our understanding, and there are, overarching, principles that we have to observe them in order to have the right interpretation of the Quran and the Sunnah. Most of the wrong interpretations is due to maximalist, orientation towards Quran. For example, there are some people who think that scientific ideas and theories, you can extract it from the Quran. This I fully disagree. And this is a maximalist orientation towards Quran and religion, and there are so many other examples.
So you mentioned about this maximalist approach towards religion. Don't you think this is also because of the very concept of prophet we have? As been said that because reason may not have that infallibility, or other sciences may not have that infallibility, according to the major description, is that prophet is someone who is divinely approved, divinely guaranteed. There is something exceptional in the prophetic experience. So now you cling on to that hope, cling on to that authenticity that prophet has, which other sciences don't have. So how do you see that, in the sense that that's why they are maximal, because they get a validation about all those things which reason may not give the validation?
Well, I mean, even if you believe in the infallibility of the prophet and so many things and so many attributes that people usually attribute to prophets, still it does not, validate you to be a maximalist. But because, after all, if there is a prophet, then he might be infallible, but it might be infallible in receiving the revelation, not in any other thing. The prophet, guaranteed is in the business of the receiving the revelation. That's it. Therefore, the Quran is not erroneous, is not, you cannot find wrong things in it according to the Quran itself. لَا يَأْتِيهِ الْبَاطِلُ مِنْ بَيْنِ يَدَيْهِ وَلَا مِنْ خَلْفِهِ. And the error does not, find way into the Quran. And those sayings and sunnah which are certainly coming from the Prophet, if we are certain about it, and if they are reliable enough. So this does not allow you to become a maximalist. Still, revelation has got its own limits, its own goals and objectives. And you have to follow those objectives, not your expectations from it. Even, let alone religions. For example, if you study Marxism, the school of Marxism, okay, they might boast, they might pretend, they might promise you many things, but it is you who have to decide that whether they fulfill their promises or they are just boasting about their abilities and competence and so on. So we actually approach religion, Islam or any religion, because of our needs. Mm-hmm. Our needs tells us that I am deficient, I have got shortcomings, I have got inabilities, I have got, some shortcomings in my, cognitive abilities and so on. Therefore, I need someone to guide me. I need someone to tell me something that I means the collective I, cannot find it myself. This is what actually pushes me towards the prophet, the religion. If really we do not feel, any need for a prophet or a religion, we would not approach any religion. So this is our need that, as I said, tells us and persuades us to go to a particular religion. And that is the expectation that we have. My need for physical sciences does not actually persuade me to go to religion, because I can actually do, and fulfill whatever I like, in terms of physical sciences and so on. And therefore, I do not have the expectations from any prophet to tell me about medicine, about physics, about astronomy, and so on. So my expectation is very limited, and the function of religion also is very well defined and limited. Maximalism is, a misconception of the function and the objective of religion.
Extending that on the maximalist notion, and you mentioned how revelation is because I need something and it can fulfill that need. If the revelation fulfills that need, I will go to it. If something else can fulfill that need, sure, I may not go to it. So the other reason is the confusion of what revelation itself means. Like, what is the nature of revelation? Even if we go by your book, sometime you mentioned in the beginning, I think, prophetic experience or revelation is like poetry. Then Jafar Subhani said that, no, Qur'an has already mentioned that it is not poetry. Then you said, like, okay, let me use the notion of mystical art, which Allama Tabatabai has used. And now we are hearing that in your Persian articles, you're saying that revelation is more like a dream state or a dream attribute. So in that sense, you have this confusion of revelation. How would you go about it?
It is not a confusion, actually. I think it is a kind of evolution being taking place in our understanding of the essence and the nature of revelation. According to the people in the past, and it was a commonplace idea about revelation, that there is God on one hand, and in heavens maybe, and the prophet is on earth, and then you have got angels coming down, descending from heavens, and they bring messages to the prophet, and so he learns, and then he proposes and let people know about it. So this is, of course, very, primitive understanding of revelation. This is based on the idea of a king and his subjects. And this example actually is being made in some of the books of Kalam, that God is like a king and we are his subjects, and he has got an envoy, and he sends him to us in order to give us and to preach us his messages. And then, of course, they interpreted and explained the idea of miracles. That miracles is part of the ayat, part of the signs special signs that is associated with the prophet, with the envoy, in order for the people not to mistake the king's envoy with a fake envoy. So this was the explanation of Revelation. But of course, as I said, that was a primitive, but this is everywhere. And still, religious people think like that. And not only in the domain of Islam, but also you see it in Christianity, that a pigeon, for example, is like, an angel comes to Jesus, and so on and so forth. So like a bird, anyway, angels are being, shaped like a bird. And of course, in the Qur'an, in a metaphorical way, we have got the same thing, that angels have got 2 wings, 3 wings, 1 wing, that أولي أجنحة مثنى وثلاث ورباع, and so on. Exactly these formulations tells us that we are here dealing with a metaphorical text. We are not dealing with a real text. And that brings us, not only me, before me, actually Farabi was the person, I think, who started this kind of, visioning and viewing the matter, that the text of the Qur'an or the revelation does not have to do with the intellect, but has got to do with the imagination. Therefore, the prophets were not philosophers. They had creative imagination. And so their images actually is the main content of revelation. When the prophet talks about angels, and even when he says that angels have got 2 wings, 3 wings, 4 wings, all these are imaginary. They are not to be taken literally. So that brings me actually to the idea that the revelation and prophet is more or less like a poet. But of course not the poets of the Jahiliyyah. I know that we have got in the Qur'an that مَا عَلَّمْنَاهُ الشِّعْرَ وَمَا يَنبَغِي. Prophet is not a poet, but poet in the sense that the Jahiliyyah people used it. Because according to them, every poet had a jinn with him. And the jinn actually imbued him and preached him and guided him and injected in him, some ideas. Here actually we have got the prophet, we have got a very fertile and creative imagination, and we have got the poems coming out of his mouth, but he doesn't call them poems, they are texts, but they are according to the compatriots of the prophet and the people who lived in his time. It was sihr, it was a magic. When they called it was a magic, of course for them it was a pejorative sense, but it did have some truth in it. It tells us that it was different from a literal, way of putting things. It was not philosophical. It was not even poetical. It was more than poetical. It was magical, and due to its influence, on their minds. So, according to Al-Farabi, more than being concerned about the intellect of the prophet, his imagination is involved here, and not only in Islam but in other religions. But here, especially in the Quran, you have very many instances of this fertile, creative imagination of the prophet. All what he says about God, all what he says about hereafter, about the Jannah, about the paradise, about the hell, about the Jahim, about angels, about death, about resurrection, and things like that, about the ghaib, the unseen world altogether, all are imaginary. All are in a poetical language. And so we have to interpret them, and we have to deal with them like somebody who, interpret the dreams.
But in that sense, which sounds also very poetic, how would you if you call it imagination of prophet or a dream, the principle of verifiability gets into places like, because we see that, okay, I am also imagining some certain things.
yes.
So how can I say, okay, this person's imagination is superior to that person's imagination? What
Could
makes
be,
prophetic
yes.
imagination so special?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we had great poets, for example, in every language, especially in Persian language. We had Rumi, we had Hafiz, and we know very well these the products of imagination, the creative imagination. And in Arabic also you had. And here, of course, we are dealing with the truth of the prophethood of the prophet. Why we think that he was a prophet? I think he was, accepting him or believing in him as a prophet is more or less a very simple matter. I mean, he was an exceptional person in his time, very exceptional. And this means that he was actually, no, I am changing the terminology. When we say he was imbued with God, he was privileged by divine authority, this means that he was exceptional. And he was very exceptional. And at his time, nobody actually produced a book like the Qur'an. Nobody was as successful as he was. So all this, we call it a kind of divine support in religious language. This is what it means. And he was a privileged person. He was an exception. And he was a truthful person. And this trustworthy being and truthful person takes us to believe him, that when he says that he received revelation, he is right. He's not misleading us. He is not, what do you call him, a scoundrel, for example. He's not like that. That is, I mean, as easy as it is. For example, Ibn Rushd, he is, the great philosopher. I like his comment. He says that the Quran is not a miracle of prophet. It is his book. Like, for example, if a medical man, a doctor writes a book about medicine, it is not his miracle. It shows that he is a physician. That's it. And the Quran is like this. I mean, it is a book of somebody who thinks that he received revelations, and he propagates things which are good for the people, for their souls and for their life, and so on and so forth. Therefore, for me, the prophet was an exceptional man, a man who was, not a liar, who was a trustworthy person, and he, like any other Arif, we had Urafa, like mystics, like Rumi, like Ibn Arabi, and so on. We can take him, on what he says. I mean, we do not have any reason why we should doubt about what he tells us, that he received revelations. And therefore, we, then try to understand what he says in his poetical language.
In this discourse, you place the usual discourse. By usual, I say what we are popularly taught is that Muhammad is a passive person and God is an active agent, because that is how the terminology of Quran also goes. It's like, Nahnu, we are telling you to do this, we are telling you to go there, we are saying do this. But poets generally don't talk like this. They are the person who are feeling it and they are talking on their behalf. So there is this thing also. And then you're making, what you also have said is that you sometimes also say it's Kalam Muhammad, which we usually call Kalamullah. So how would you justify this?
Oh, it's a big issue. Actually, one thing which we have to be absolutely clear about it, that God is everywhere. And God is not outside Muhammad. And then in order to send into him or to inject into him something, he's inside him. He's inside everything. He is actually, God is not in the world. World is in God. This is the true understanding of relationship between God and the world, of God and his creation. And if you like a philosophical language, we are all effects, and God is the cause. And effect is part of the cause, actually, is manifestation of the cause, and cause is always present in his effects. It is not that the effect is something separated from the cause. That's not the case. Again, ordinary people think that effect is different and is separated from the cause, but in a real sense, when you go and analyze, the essence of causality, according to Mullah Sadra, you will find that cause is there, always is present in the effect. And the relationship is not cut off, it's always there, and this relationship is somehow a relationship of union. It is not two things connected, it is one thing. From one aspect is cause, and from another aspect is the effect. This is very important. Therefore, when we talk about the Prophet Muhammad and any prophet, he is full of divinity. He is imbued with divinity. This is how I put it. Of course, full of divinity is my, gloss on it, my interpretation. And God is inside him. And this is how he inspires him. And revelation is not just a bird like an angel coming from heavens to the prophet, but it is an inspiration from within the prophet himself. God, who is united with the prophet, inspires him with those imaginations, with those general, ideas, with grand truth. And then, of course, he tells us in his own language, in Arabic. Suppose if the prophet was Greek, his book would have been in Greek. If he was a German person, his book would be in German. Therefore, God does not speak neither German nor Greek. The prophet actually speaks Greek or German or Persian or Arabic, whatever, but he's imbued with the ideas. And ideas then is put, and let me, borrow a term, perhaps, from Rumi. The ideas are formless, and this is prophet who forms them. And this is the main business of prophets, to form the formless, to form the formless. And this forming the formless actually always is, connected with the culture and with the environment of the prophet. Prophet Muhammad was an Arab. He was a man. He was not a woman. And all this actually comes and, into his revelation when he wants to form the formless. The formless is neither male nor female, nor Arabic nor German, but since Prophet Muhammad was an Arab and his language was Arabic, he was a man, he was, living at that time in that particular environment and culture. So his revelation, when it takes form, it becomes cultural. It becomes culture bound. It's like, any Arab who speaks and who is under the influence of his own culture. Therefore, did I answer your question? Or perhaps there was a remnant, part of it which I did not.
I think partly you answered is that in the sense that how the way it has been said to, the way the revelation is revealed, it seems the external source, the content of, and you're making it Kalam Muhammad then. Yeah,
this is what I mentioned. That was the God inspired Muhammad internally. It was an internal inspiration, divine inspiration, formless inspiration, divine inspiration, internal inspiration, and then Prophet Muhammad made it external, made it formed, and made it Arabic and culturally also Arabic. So this is how I understand it.
Oh, but which at this point I'm reiterating it. This was already in the book, which in one of your letters is they would say that in Anzalnahu. So we revealed the Quran. So Prophet doesn't say, I revealed, I am saying, I am receiving. It's like we revealed it to you. And also there is a pronoun shift happening through and through. Sometimes it's we, sometimes it's I. So
It doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't contradict with what I said.
The source being other than, in the sense, it not just being divinely, internally inspired, but externally. I'm talking about the agency here. So in your approach, Muhammad has the prime agency. But talking on their behalf, who are saying that, no, it's not Muhammad's agency. Muhammad is just a passive messenger. So they are saying that even the pronouns, the way they shift in the Quran, it looks like that the agency is external. It is not very internal.
Well, I actually mentioned this before, that God is neither internal nor external. I mean, He is Muhit. He is, everything is surrounded by Him. So you may call Him external or you may call Him internal. It doesn't matter. God is even in us or within us or outside us, wherever.
In the sense, right now, I'm feeling sad. It doesn't mean God is also feeling sad. I have some control towards my individuality and that's shaping my experience. But for those who they are saying that this shaping of experience, the agency lies externally. Well, definitely God, but God might not be sad when I am sad.
Well, in a sense, yes, God is also sad when you are sad. Actually, in a very subtle way, it is true. Look, this is one of the issues that our mystics actually have taken and have talked about it. And also you have it in the New Testament. The same example is in both in Islamic Sunnah and also in the New Testament. In the New Testament, you read that in the day after, in the resurrection, God actually asks some of His servants, creatures, some of human beings, that why you did not come to see me when I was sick. And the man replies, "Oh God, you will not, become sick. What is this?" And then what is the reply of God is that my so-and-so servant was sick. You did not go to visit him. Some people would take it metaphorical, but our mystics did not take it metaphorical. We have got the same hadith in Islam, also coming from the Prophet, and our mystics have mentioned it and have discussed it. This is very important. This is what we call it wahdat al-wujud. Actually, there is a unity between man, not only man, all creation, and God. Therefore, what goes on inside us goes on inside God. I mean, in a very subtle way. So, like what goes on in your body goes on in your soul, on an upper level. So, without being that they are one and the same, but they have got so mingled, so connected, so intertwined, that you can say the same thing about both of them. So this is one thing. Now the other thing is when we say that God is with us, we do not mean that our limitations are imposed on Him. That is not the case, and that's why we are not God. He is with us, and He is in us, but He is not like us, okay? And our limitations are not His limitations. This is, and this is what Rumi says, when you have an ocean, and you have got a small jar, and you fill your jar from the ocean is limitless. But in your jar, it is limited, okay? So these are examples in order to tell us that how to actually shape, how to understand the subtle relationship between the creator and the creature.
As you mentioned Kalam Muhammad, sometimes in your talks, you also doesn't say God, you say God of Muhammad.
Yes.
So why do you deliberately make this shift if God is everywhere? Yes. What are you trying to convey?
This is theological. This is a Kalami theory. There has been a very big and hot debate among the Muslim theologians about the Kalamullah, the speech of God, and how God is supposed to speak. to utter words. He doesn't have a mouth. He doesn't have, a voice. So how are we to figure out how God speaks? And there has been, very hot debate among the Muslim theologians about the speech of God, about Kalamullah, even Ilmul Kalam. Some people have suggested that this is Ilmul Kalam because one of the main arguments and main debates was about the Kalamullah. And of course, we have got in the Qur'an, وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى تَكْلِيمًا. Therefore, this business of God's speech, God speaking to prophets is, very explicitly mentioned in the Qur'an. We cannot deny it. And it was a hot debate between Mu'tazilis and Ash'aris that Kalamullah is one of the attributes of him, or it is part of his deeds and so on. So it's a very hot debate. I think I tried to solve the problem, not by going to one of those two schools of thought, supporting this one against the other one and so on. I thought that they have done whatever they could do, and the debate is on a standstill position. And we cannot solve it through going into the same way and by the same method. Therefore, what I did was this, that Kalamullah is a metaphorical statement. Like many other things that most of the mystics and even philosophers, they think that most of the attributes of God are metaphorical. When we use the word mercy, God is merciful, okay? But his mercy is not like our human beings. So it is a metaphorical attribute. Metaphorical, it means that it is not being used in the same sense that we use it about human beings, like the mercifulness of a mother towards her child and so on. Therefore, this even about ilm, for example, knowledge, when we say that God knowledgeable, his knowledge not like our knowledge, but we cannot help it because this is our language. We have to use it. But when it comes to God, we have to use it metaphorically. When we, for example, talk about the anger of God, Azaballah alayhim. So God does not become angry in the sense that we human beings become angry. It is metaphorical. It was very strange for me, very surprising that they did all these discussions and debates about the metaphorical nature of God's attributes. But when it came to this speech of God, they thought that it is literal. It is literal. That was really, really surprising. And first of all, the first step I took was that it is metaphorical, like any other attribute of God. What is wrong with that? When we say that God speaks, it doesn't mean that it speaks like us human beings. He doesn't have any voice. There is no air, behind, in front of God in order to create waves in the air and so on. So everybody knows that. And because of that, some of them said, okay, no, Kalamullah means his knowledge, something that was in his mind. God does not have a mind even. God does not have a particular language. You have in the Qur'an, for example, that God spoke to his angels, in those first ayahs of the Surah Al-Baqarah. قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ God, talked and spoke to angels. Was it there any particular language between God and... So it is metaphorical. Therefore, my solution was this, that the Kalam Muhammad's speech is the Kalam of God. Therefore, when Muhammad talks, for us, it means that God is talking to us. Muhammad is really talking and God is metaphorically talking. Mm-hmm. So these two actually correspond with each other, and one is on the top of the other. Therefore, I think this is a best solution for this business of debate among the Ash'aris and Mu'tazilis, to take the speech of God metaphorical, and therefore when we say that God is mutakallim, we understand that the Kalam Muhammad is, replaces, actually does what the Kalamullah would like to do for us. That is the thing. But Kalam Muhammad is Arabic. Therefore, you see, for example, with different prophets, the Kalamullah differs. One case of Jesus is Aramaic, in the case of Muhammad is Arabic. This is the language of these prophets. It's not the language of God. God does not have any language. So again, his ideas and his inspirations are formless, and they form it into Arabic or into Aramaic, into any other language.
Different prophets' characteristics, the message changes accordingly, as you have mentioned.
Absolutely, yes. So when you look at the Kalam, for example, in the Qur'an, you see that Muhammad is everywhere, present everywhere. His Arabic culture, the culture of Hijaz, and everything is there. Even the male culture, because Muhammad is talking. God is not male, God is not Arab. So everywhere he's present. That's very important. This is the what is it? He's not passive, as you said. He's very active. Yes, and he's creating this message.
Yes. So in that sense, when somebody says that Quran is a patriarchal text, it is because Muhammad in that sense belonged to a patriarchal society. That's why.
Yes, you might say that. You might say that. Yes. In order to understand the text, you have to take into account all these things.
So can we also say that just, in Quran we see a lot of times orphans, and these mentioned is what Prophet's own personal experience because he was orphan. There's a specific.
That can be the case, or maybe there were many orphans around. And when you look at the Quran, for example, I have made a distinction between the essentials and the accidentals. There are so many things which are accidental in the Quran. Actually, 99% of the Quran is accidental. The main message of the Quran is essential, like the unity of God and so on. Even God himself has been described through metaphorical attributes, you see. And there is a saying by Ibn Sina that Tawheed is not to be found in the Quran, because Tawheed is, a formless thing which has been formed by the language of Arabic and many other things. So it is conditioned. It is conditioned by the condition of Prophet. And as I said, so many things around. So because of that, you will see that, for example, Torah is different from the Quran. And the same you will see in, for example, different poets have got different poetries. It comes from their personalities and conditioned by their personalities. I think no wonder that Quran, more than showing us anything else, shows us the personality of the Muhammad. That's how I understand it.
And you mentioned that the Muhammad is also evolving in that process.
That's right, absolutely. He's part of the process. He's not passive. He's creating, he's reshaping, and his imagination actually comes into play, and his personality, everything. That's right. Sometimes I say that the Westerners are right when they say that Islam is Mohammedanism. Like when we call, the followers of Jesus Christians. Because they are shaped by the personality of Jesus Christ. Islam is Mohammedanism. It's something which, revolves around the personality of Muhammad. And a real Muslim is somebody who follows Muhammad. Even his God is God of Muhammad. Because you might have a philosopher who can prove the existence of God, the attributes of God, that has got nothing to do with Islam. In Islam, you follow Muhammad and you obey the commands of the God of Muhammad. Everything is Muhammad. That's the main thing.
And how do we reconcile it with the other? So why is there this rigidity towards...
Which rigidity?
In the terms of just God of Muhammad. Why can't God of Muhammad be God of everyone?
No. God of Muhammad is God of everyone. But if you want to assert, to claim that you are a follower, a Muslim, then you have to follow Muhammad and you have to know God through Muhammad. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Generally, we usually see people talking about prophecy and all. You mentioned, it may be an initial question as well, you place it in the terms of an experience. Like you have purposefully used this word as a prophetic experience, which also in a kind of democratizes as well, because experience anybody can have access to. Like it
Yes, everybody can access.
So what was the reason of using this particular term, expansion of prophetic experience?
Because revelation is an experience. Revelation is an experience. It's like experience of writing poetry. Being a poet is an experience. When you get involved and engaged in producing a poem, if you are a real poet, not a follower, an imitator of others, a real poet, then it is an experience. It is an experience. Thinking is an experience. And mystical experience also is an experience. So I do not make much difference between mystical experience and prophetic experience. They are of the same genre. And even our mystics had the same idea. Take Rumi, for example. He very explicitly says that we receive revelations. He says this. He said, Wallahu alam bisawab. This is one of his poems. It's 26,000 poems. He actually mentions this very explicitly, and he's not shy of that. And he thinks that all Arif, all mystics receive experience. And what they say, they are not only followers of Prophet. They take part in his experience also. Mm-hmm. They take part. This is not the ordinary religiosity of the ordinary people. Ordinary people, yes, they are obedient and they are followers of the Prophet and they follow and obey his commands. This is one level of being a Muslim or being a religious person. But the higher level is to taking part, sharing, the experience of the Prophet. And that was actually the ideal and aspiration of our Arifs to become another prophet, to become semi-prophet. That door is open to everybody. There is a poem by Rumi. I read it to you because since you are followers of the Prophet Muhammad, you can ascend to heavens like him. Why don't you ascend to heavens like Prophet Muhammad? He just opened the door. He did not close the door. So the door to become a like prophet is open. Of course, he was Khatamun Nabiyyin. You cannot say that you have got another Sharia, but you can have religious experience, prophetic experience. And what I have mentioned in my books that since it is an experience, and this is one of the consequences, one of the implications of this, the prophet became more of a prophet. He became more experienced, and this is true. This is true. Because according to Ibn Khaldun, when in the early revelations, prophet could not tolerate it very well, but by and by, like a poet who became more of a poet, he became more experienced. And so he tolerated even long pieces of revelation, according to him. That's
the difference between the Meccan and the Medinan prophet.
Yes, indeed, yes.
And that's the content also.
Yeah, the content and many other things, yes.
So you also mentioned in the book that prophets not only know hidden things, but they also keep this knowledge hidden. In the sense their lives are extremely difficult and paradoxical.
Life of prophet?
Yeah, you mentioned it.
Yes, I mean, that is something which is not for the, the common people. Yes, the life of Prophet was paradoxical. There is a hadith from one of the Shia Imams, I don't remember whom, who said that the whole life of Prophet Muhammad was spent in taqiyya. He was a prophet, but the whole life he was in taqiyya. Taqiyya means that he hid something. And he could not say what he had in heart, what he had in mind. He just, downgraded it to the level of the understanding of the people of his time. There is another saying by Prophet himself, نَحْنُ مَعَاشَرَ الْأَنْبِيَاءُ أُمِرْنَا أَن نُكَلِّمَ النَّاسَ عَلَى قَدْرِ عُقُولِهِم. We are commanded by God to talk to people according to the level of their understanding. So there are isharat, there are very subtle points. among the sayings of Prophet or even ayat al-Qur'an. And there are secrets and mysteries that is perhaps uncoverable by the competent people, but not everybody. But most of the Quran is the ordinary language for the ordinary people. So he was in taqiyya, don't forget that. So he was, as I said, he did know the secrets, but he was not allowed to disclose the secrets. And knowing secrets and not being allowed to disclose them is a very a big pressure on you. Yes. Like when you know somebody who is your enemy, but you would like to show that you do not know anything about him, and you would like to treat him like your friend. This is always a pressure on you, but you have to have the power to tolerate this pressure. And that was the taqiyya that the Prophet made. And mystics actually do make that as well.
It's a part of a prophetic experience.
Yes, part of the prophetic experience. And that's why you have in the Quran that it is in Surah Al-Muzammil, إِنَّا سَنُلْقِي عَلَيْكَ قَوْلًا ثَقِيلًا. We reveal to you a very heavy, a very weighty revelation. That was weighty, that was heavy. And not all what was revealed to Prophet, he disclosed it to people. Not all what was revealed to Prophet, it is there in the Quran. No. He knew many things that he did not, publish it. He did not, propagate it. Yes, he just kept it to himself. And this is the case with every mystic.
This time is Prophet infertile. If mystical experience we can still have, if those hidden secrets people still are having, why did finality occur, and why are you saying that this contemporary time is Prophet infertile?
Because the Prophet himself said, if he had not said this, we do not have any philosophical argument nor any scientific argument that the prophethood should end somewhere. It might continue. But the Prophet, whom we take as a man who is not a liar, he told us that he was the last prophet. And I think it was a very, very good policy on the part of the Prophet or a part of God, because both of them knew that, as I said, the soil of history is not fertile for another prophethood. And that was vindicated, actually, in history, because all prophets who came after the Prophet Muhammad, they were not successful. They were not successful. And this shows that it was a very real and an apt realization and recognition by Prophet Muhammad that he was the last one, and after him no prophethood would be successful. According to Iqbal al-Lahuri, his was the time of imagination and mythical explanations, but then, of course, is the age of reason and so on and so forth. Yes, that's what I understand, that from then on we are left with the text, and we are left with our interpretations of the text. No more prophet is needed.
So democratization, no authority needed now?
No authority needed. No heavenly authority needed. Yes. Only this book and the interpretation of the book within the limitations of our expectations.
In that sense now, the world is democratic in that sense now. There has been democratization of access to God in the sense of...
Yes, I do not call it democratic, but anyway, it's not heavenly ruled anymore. People are left to themselves to decide and to manage their affairs.
So how would you look at then the doctrine of Imama in that sense?
Well, Imama is a doctrine which is, a special doctrine of Shi'is, and it does not belong to whole Islam. And it needs, a big discussion to see what it means. Actually, according to Shi'is, Prophet Muhammad was not the last prophet. And Imams were actually prophets, according to Shi'is. And for them, the end or the seal of prophethood was the year 260 after Hijrah, when the last Imam was born. So, in a sense, Imama contradicts the Prophet being the end, the last Prophet. This is something which I have got questions about. But if you deprive Imams from this, those attributes which makes them like Prophet, then of course they are rightly guided, fuqaha, ulama, but not, people like Prophet who receive revelation. No. But according to the Shia doctrine, Imams receive revelation.
Maybe there are mistakes then, according to that.
Yes, mystics, of course, mystics receive revelation, but their revelation is not incumbent on us. It's not a God command. It's for them themselves. But Imams actually tells us that so and so is wajib on you. Even if there is, you do not find them in the Qur'an or in the Sunnah of Prophet. They create Sunnah. Shia thinks that Imams are shari, they are legislators. They can legislate things which are, you cannot find them neither in the Qur'an nor in the Sunnah. This is the real meaning of the Imamah in Shiism. Otherwise, as I said, the door of mystical experience is open to everybody, even to Imams of Shia. But if you say that there are revelations coming to you which make people, people to come to you and to accept, what you make them to do. This is Sharia, and no mystical experience becomes another Sharia.
How do you think, how much valuable, because generally we talk about philosophy, theology, in current terms also when there is talk about Islamic discourse also, thinking, thought, rational discourses are valued, but experienced is very less focused. What do you think is the value of experience in itself in the domain of Islamic discourses or Islamic knowledge?
Which experience? Mystical,
in the sense of this experience that is religious experience.
This is the heart of religiosity, actually. Iman and religious experience. Forget about philosophy, theology. All these are human sciences. They are good. But they have nothing to do with religion, with Iman, with religiosity, with nothing like that. Religion means ta'abbud, means servitude, means Iman, means faith, means trust in God and what He says, and means ubudiyya, to be servant of God and, obedient to what He says. That is the real religion, and it is ethics and morality, of course. And even fiqh is not part of the religiosity per se, although it is incumbent, actually, but it is something which is very, accidental. And if Prophet were, raised in another environment, his fiqh would have been quite different.
Very different.
Yes. Therefore, yes, experience, religious experience, obedient, Iman, and khushu', and trust in God, tawakkul. This is the heart of religiosity.
As you mentioned, and all of this, the discussion we had right now was based on language, reason. And so sometimes some say that Dr. Soroush is asking for minimalization of fiqh or minimalization of religion, but maximalization of reason.
Not maximalization of reason, maximalization of experience and of morality. Yes. And trust in God and fear of God. That is, and love of God. That is, I would like to maximize those, not reasoning.
So this is actually the last question. It's the Thinking Islam question that we have, is that we ask our guest not for an answer, but a question that is currently in their mind they're thinking about. So what is your question that you are currently thinking about these days?
Currently thinking about Jabr and Ikhtiyar. And, determinism and Qaza and Qadar and things like that. And I'm going to have a talk about it. And I have written about it. And this is an issue which has been my issue since my adolescence, actually. And I have been thinking about it, revisiting it, rethinking, reading, writing, and finding solutions and answers still I have not yet settled. So, and this is something which has got to do with divine, Mashiach, and with some ayats of the Qur'an, which are contradictory. I mean, seemingly they are contradictory in this respect. And that's why one school of Mu'tazilite we have got, and the other school of Ash'arite, they believe in the free will and they do not believe in the free will, and so on and so forth. Although this business of free will is a misnomer and is a misconception, which other misconceptions, follow from this. So I try to pursue the matter and to find perhaps at least a tentative solution to the problem. And I think I am almost there. I mean, as far as I understand. But I ask always for God's guidance.
Whether it was our free will or it was already determined, but it was an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, dear Arman. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.